Okay. Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to learn all about you with 3 tips on how to set goals with your kids and teens.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Okay. So, as we're heading into the new year, goals are on everybody's mind and everyone's looking to like kind of just start new, start fresh. Everyone's excited and motivated. So, let's help our families figure out how to get the whole family involved. And it's not just like a dictatorship and mom and dad are telling you what's going on and no one's going to get on board. So we need your tips. Help us work through this.
Okay. I'll share the best that I can. Okay. We just jump right into it? Ready for
Let's
number
do
one?
it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, you kind of introduced it a little bit, but your family, your kids have to want to do it. And so, yes, as a parent, we're like, all right, let's get going. Let's do this goal thing. How about you do this and you do this and you do this? And they need to be able to come up with their own ideas. And so I think tip number one is they have to want to do it. Can't push your own personal agenda. Like in your mind, you're like, oh, this person needs to work on their manners and this person needs to work on cleaning their room. And I mean, there are ways to just, all right, let's brainstorm together and discuss. But I mean, if you really want your kids and your teens to make goals and execute them, they have to want to do it. So kind of trying to let go a little bit of the pushing
Yeah.
is
So what do
ideal.
you think, what does that look like for you? So like we're at the beginning of the year. Are you sitting down at the kitchen table? Do you keep it more casual? Maybe you were like laying on the bed, just chatting. Are we writing things down? What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think writing things down helps. And I think it can happen in multiple stages too. I think it's nice to give your kids a warning of like, all right, this Sunday afternoon, we're gonna sit down together. We're gonna brainstorm. I want you guys thinking maybe a week in advance. I want you guys thinking of some goals that you want to make. Maybe make it a little note in your phone. Here's a piece of paper. Maybe there's a whiteboard where everyone's just kind of brainstorming and throwing different ideas together. And that can be laying on the bed or that can be at the dinner table as you're kind of thinking and brainstorming. Maybe mom's taking some of the notes and then make it a little bit more formal, because when you can make it a little bit more formal, then it helps them to really kind of get the idea and be serious and say, okay, we're going to do this. Because I think if for myself, if I'm making goals just in my head, they're not necessarily going to happen. But when you can write it down and be concrete and have a little bit of formality to it and make some actionable steps about how you're going to meet that goal, then it's a little more likely that it's going to happen.
Yeah. I love that idea of like, excuse me, like planting this seed instead of just like, all right, everyone come sit down and we're doing this.
Yeah.
Because we talk, actually,
Yeah.
my husband and I just did an episode on like getting your husband on board with setting goals and doing like a challenge. And that's what we talked about is like not just like springing it on him, but like kind of like thinking through it and planting that seed here and there, like, oh, I heard this one thing. Isn't that cool? Yes. And then moving on and getting a little bit deeper and figuring out, okay, now what can we do? Like, what are we going to work on? And
Right. And I love that. And instead of saying, hey, I think you should do this, you can say, oh, I saw someone who's planning to do this. It can be the same delivery of, maybe you could think about working this. Instead of saying you should work on this, say, oh, I heard, or I was looking up ideas and I saw this as a suggestion, or I was thinking about doing this myself, and planting the seeds in that roundabout way so that they can think like, they're not gonna, if they're not gonna come up with it themselves, and they're likely not gonna do it themselves. And so helping them get to the point of
yeah,
coming up with it themselves.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
okay. So I'm really curious to hear how this has gone for you with teenagers. We don't have teenagers in our house yet. Our oldest is our daughter, and she's going to be 12 in March. So we're like dipping our toes in
Pretty
those
close.
preteen years. Um,
Right.
so what's your experience with setting goals with teenagers? Like, are they like, oh, this is so boring, or how's it been?
They run the gamut. I have 4 kids. I like to say I've graduated 2 teens. I've got young adults now and 2 that are teenagers now. And I think, within our family, it's so hard to know because family dynamics are so different and kids are all so different. I think at the core, all teens recognize their need for self improvement and they want to improve, But when they're being told to improve or feeling like there's an outside motive, they're less inclined to want to do it. And so, like I said, helping up with the idea themselves. They want to do it, but they don't want to be forced to do it. So sometimes it can be tricky. And sometimes they look like they're not interested, like they're rolling their eyes or like, we really have to do this. This is boring. And you kind of have to just let those things slide and just say, we're going to talk about it. And hopefully something is sticking, even though it doesn't look like it's sticking. So just assume that it is.
I love that.
And assume that they're listening, even though on the outside it may not look like it.
That is so encouraging. I really appreciate that. It's making me think a lot about the book, The SelfDriven Child. Have you read that book? It's one of my very favorite ones. And that's like the whole premise behind it, right? Is like helping them learn how to work through things. And otherwise, it's just going to be a constant battle with no matter what the topic is. And that's really hard. Okay. So,
tip number self-driven from the time that they're sorry. No. I was gonna say you want them to be self-driven as a preteen, as a teenager, so that when they are adults, they are self-driven. Because if you're telling them goals to make when they're younger, they're not going to know what to do with themselves when they're older. So yes, the self-driven child, just all encompassing.
Yes, I know. And that's what has scared me is like, okay, if I had to catch myself because, you know, I'm like a hardcore planner and I'm like, if we do it like this, then it'll work out perfect. And that's been one of my things in parenting that I'm learning is like, okay, you just have to let go of a lot of things. You teach and give them the tools. I know, so scary.
Right.
But because I was thinking, I'm like,
hard.
If I do everything for them, they're going to leave the house. And then how are they going to make choices on their own, no matter what it is, big or small or anything? So that can be really scary. Okay. So you have another tip for us. What else can we do to help with?
Okay. So as part of the brainstorming, I like to help them kind of break it down. Maybe they're like, I don't know what to pick, or there's so many things. Sometimes I get overwhelmed. Like, I've got 10 things I want to improve. And when you try and tackle 10 things, it's kind of, it is overwhelming and you kind of lose steam. So I like to help them break it into categories. So maybe there's like a mental category, like maybe it's mental health, maybe it's, you know, practicing meditation, maybe it's counting to 10 or, you know, doing some of those things that help kind of help de-stress a little bit, or just having something for themselves enjoy. You know, any of those, you can make a category. Like, it's good to just brain dump lots of different things. And then, you know, think of something physical. Maybe they're wanting to exercise more. Maybe they're wanting to eat more vegetables, or maybe they're wanting to take a multivitamin, or, you know, one of those things that could be beneficial, but, you know, they don't really necessarily think about. And then, you know, you can think of a spiritual realm, like how they want to become more in tune with God, or something social. Like, I want to get together with my friends more. I'm going to initiate, you know, one thing a month or something like that. And so helping them kind of do like this big brainstorm, and then kind of narrowing it down to actionable steps that will help within those categories. And then really just kind of focusing on, okay, you want to do all these things, pick one. Pick one right now that you really want to just hardcore. And maybe it doesn't have to be a goal of the year. It can be like a 21 day. And then, you know, maybe this month you focus on this one. And then the next month, let's focus on another one. I think New Year's resolutions, you think of January and goals, you think, I'm going to, you know, pick all these things. I'm going to do it for the year. But that feels overwhelming. And I mean, you know, what they say about 21 days or 30 days or something, if you can do it that many days, then you can start to add on a little bit from there. And tackling one at a time, but then having maybe 3 after that, and say, all right, let's reassess and see if they want to once a month review goals and encourage each other and do all those things.
Oh, that is so good. I'm literally taking notes. This is so good. So I've never even thought about that with doing it with the kids. It makes so much sense, right? Like, there's things that we're doing as parents, or me in my personal development. I don't know. Sometimes I just need somebody wiser than me to be like, oh yeah, you could do that with your kids too. So breaking it down onto like a shorter timeline, and especially for little kids, I'm sure too, like with teenagers, if you think, okay, I'm going to do this big giant goal for the year, like maybe they're like, I want to make 10 new friends or whatever this year, break it down and are like, okay, let's make 1 new friend by the end of the school year. Like, that seems so much more doable. And it's also going to actually help them achieve their goal, because if our kids are reaching their goals, they're going to be more excited about setting another goal instead of just all these goals that kind of like go to the wayside and we forget about them because we had this year-long goal. And then also following up with them. Following up with them to have the family check-in, like maybe during a family meeting or something. And and what about helping each other with your goals? Like, I think that would be a great unifying thing too.
For sure. I mean, if you're having a family discussion all together and you're talking about your goals, it is nice to be able to, like, it's tough because on one hand you want to be like, hey, how's it going making that friend for the new year, you know? And sometimes, like, if they're not feeling good about it, they're like, wah, wah. You know, so when you said that, it made me think, okay, so your goal is make a new friend. What are some actionable steps towards making a new friend? Because if you have just in your head, I want to make a new friend, there's not a lot of control. So I like to talk about effort and outcome. You know, making a new friend is kind of, you don't know. You can maybe make a new friend, but what you can do is your effort. What you can do towards making a new friend is smile to 5 different people different every day, or say hi to people, or compliment people, and, you know, make actionable steps towards making a new friend, or invite a friend, you know, invite a friend over, invite a friend to meet you at a park, or plan to get together. You know, what are the actionable things to making a friend? Because sometimes it's hard to quantify that. And you can say, like, if you say to your kid, hey, say hi to one new person every day, or start up a conversation, or give them a compliment. That's something that they can, like, it's a checkbox, right? It's helpful to be able to say every day for 21 days, I said hi to somebody new, different, or I complimented somebody different. And at the end of that 21 days, like, okay, did each person just say okay, or did it strike up a conversation, or do you feel like you have, you know, a potential deeper friendship than that? And it can kind of help build on that and say, oh, that's great that you gave a compliment to somebody every day this week. Is there any of those people that you think you would like to initiate a get together with? You know, kind of helping them take that step a little bit further beyond some of those actionable steps. I'm all about actionable because I can say I want to, you know, lose weight, or, you know, whatever, but if you don't have an actionable step to get there, then it's likely not going to happen.
Oh, I mean, amen is all I can keep thinking. Like, yes, I'm all about those steps. And I'm also thinking, like, think of how, if we break it into those actionable steps, it's not as overwhelming, like you were saying. And think of the confidence it's going to build in the kid to take the next actionable step, because they're going to be like, yes, okay, I was able to smile. And so that builds a little bit more confidence and a little bit more. And I'm also thinking about how, as parents, we can make space for them to, like, take those actions. So, you know, first action is saying hi, and then the next action is this or whatever. And I'm thinking about your, didn't you do a waffle lunch or something for your daughter and her friends yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call Waffle Wednesday. And yeah, it's a great way to, actually, somebody sent me a message and like, wow, that's really nice. I'm kind of jealous that your child has that many friends. And I said, well, they've got a couple of good friends, and then those friends have friends. And, you know, when you kind of make it open, like an open-ended invite, then it's an opportunity for more people to be able to participate beyond maybe what you feel comfortable reaching out to and inviting stuff. So, yeah, I like the open-ended situation where it's like everyone's invited, and, you know, whoever. So far, I haven't ended up with 50 people, but it is nice that it's a couple of them come in and they're like, oh, like, I hope it's okay. So a couple months ago, somebody brought one of their younger siblings. I hope it's okay they brought my sibling. I'm like, that's great, come on in. And you know what? If everyone has half a waffle, that's okay too. If we end up having 50 people, everyone will have half of a waffle.
Yeah.
Instead of 2.
I love that. Yeah. So if we can be helpful, we're not doing it for them, but we're, like, creating this space for them, or, like, giving them the tools they need in order to, like, take those steps. So I love that. So we're breaking our goals down into categories, and then breaking them even further, like choosing 1 or 2, putting them into actionable steps. That's going to be so helpful for us. Okay. And then what's the last thing we can do to help our family?
So in this family planning meeting, you know, if there's a lot of goal making is like self-improvement, which is great. And I was just thinking we need to infuse family fun and, you know, doing some of those connecting activities. So, you know, as a family, when everyone's talking about their individual self-improvement goals, like let's also make some family goals. Let's do one family, I'll plan, and maybe you can rotate who's doing the fun things or plan to do. I mean, I have a friend who her husband did the one-on-one outings every month with each of their kids, and they have 4 kids, and that's great. And I mean, I say a lot of things like, oh yeah, do these one-on-one outings, take your kids out for ice cream, take them out, and time goes by and you realize, wow, I haven't done one-on-one things like I wanted to do. So planning and scheduling in, sometimes it feels inauthentic to some people to schedule in, but when you write down and your child knows the first Thursday of every month I'm going out for ice cream with my mom, and it's going to be an hour, and we all know it. And you know, if you get to that day and it's crazy, all right, let's reschedule to tomorrow or whatever. But planning in those fun things as well as the self-improvement, because when it's all about self-improvements, feels hard.
Yeah.
Let's do some fun.
I know. And also, like, okay, we could look at it as like, okay, we're just doing something for fun. But if you like really dig down into like deep what that fun is doing for your family, like you're strengthening those relationships, you're creating a safer, like your kids will feel more comfortable around you. Like the fun part is so important. And sometimes I need to be reminded to make time for that, and scheduling it in. It's again one of those things that's like, yeah, I know, like we schedule date night, right, for husband and I, but we have to make sure if you schedule it in, like you said, I know some people do think it makes it feel like not quite as sincere, or I don't know, whatever it is. But if you have a busy life, which
it's better to be done than done perfect.
Yes. And we all have a busy life. I know we all do.
And another idea, some teens aren't really up for that. They feel like that's pressure. And I mean, even just taking them lunch to school one day, maybe you're picking up a Happy Meal and you're taking it to them. I did one time last year. I haven't done this in a while. I thought I just got a Happy Meal for my daughter and 3 of her friends, and I dropped it off to them. And you know, it's not conversation. Sometimes kids feel a little too much pressure with conversation, but it's like, this is a one-on-one connecting thing that I can do. And I'm only there for the 30-second drop off, but it's like the visual and the memory and the positive, happy feelings. That's all part of connecting with your child, with your teenager, of doing those things that are memorable to help have those warm feelings in their heart for you, so that when they need help and advice and someone to talk to, they're not afraid of talking to you, but they're like, my parents are a safe place because they've done these connecting things with me.
Man, I really appreciate that example, because it's just got my brain thinking, because we were just talking about like, okay, what can we do to connect with our daughter a little bit more? And I thought, what if we just are sitting on her bed while she's like crafting in her room, and we're just there. There's no pressure to talk. Maybe I'm like doing my thing, but just having like bringing lunch to school, even for your little kids. Like when you said that, I'm like, I remember those times, even when I was in elementary school, that my mom did it, and it makes you feel loved. It makes you know that your parents care about you and they're there for you. Just that tiny little gesture. And like you said, no words needed. Just, okay, have a great day. I love that example. It's got me excited.
Oh, good.
Yes. Okay. So
so many things. I think sometimes we get overwhelmed with the things, but I think the planning helps execute, so you don't feel overwhelmed, and this helps.
Yeah, when you have it, and also for me is if I have something planned, then I can like stop thinking about it, because you have a million other things and you're like, okay, I have this planned, I have this scheduled on the calendar. Okay, now I can move on to like making dinner or like whatever it is, you know, because we all have a million things.
Check boxes.
Yes.
It helps to be able to check a box.
I really do. Okay, I think that's going to be so helpful for all of our families, helping us come together as a family, figuring out what our priorities are, helping each other through getting those goals, and still making sure that we're having fun. So those are all really grateful. I'm really grateful for all of those tips. So, okay, so first of all, tell everybody where they can follow along so they can keep getting more useful tips on helping parenting, and specifically with teenagers. And I just have to put a plug in. We don't have teenagers, but I've followed you for a while on Instagram, and it really gives me hope. And there's lots of things that we implement now, even without teenagers. So let us all know where we can follow you.
And I love that, because I do emphasize parenting teens. I feel like it's a space that just needs more positivity. And I am just cheering all of parents that are there that don't have teenagers yet, because when you're planning ahead, when you're preparing, you're going to be so much better off, because you've got these ideas just kind of marinating around in your head and reminding you, when my teen comes home grumpy, when my teen does this freak out moment, I can control my own emotions, and it'll be so much better. So yes, I love when the parents of preteens are there and are just soaking it all in. So I am sharing daily on Instagram at Kristen Duke Chats. I like to make fun videos and conversation and lots of stories and all that good stuff. If you go to my website, KristenDuke.com, you can get a freebie. It's the Intentional Connection Playbook. We talked about connection and the fun things. So it's a little playbook of, I think, 10 different ideas. I tried to pull out some unique things that aren't just kind of the run-of-the-mill ideas for family connecting activities. It's a free download, and when you download it, you're on my email list. I call it the Bestie Club, where all of my besties, and I share the behind the scenes. And I'm not a big email. I'm like a once a week emailer usually. So, but that's where I am in those two places the most.
Perfect. Thank you. And the other thing I think you do so well is you focus on the positive things that happen with parenting teenagers, right? Like everyone talks about like all the hard things and stuff like that, but you know, just like Ralphie Jacobs from Simply on Purpose, I think that's her last name. She talks about focusing on all the good things. And it's so true that when you do focus on those things, that those things grow and you start to notice more of them, and it encourages your kids to keep doing more of that. And you do such a great job of helping parents look for the good and focus on all the amazing things that teenagers have to offer us. And I'm really excited to have teenagers in our house. So thank you so much for doing that and sharing all that goodness online. It really is such an important work that you're doing. And I just really appreciate it personally from our family. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That means so much. It makes my heart happy.
Good. Okay. And then just to close it all out, we just want to ask, do you have any one maybe a funny memory from dinner time, or something interesting, maybe a conversation you had with your family at the dinner table?
Oh, I love the dinner table. I am a big advocate of sitting together. So many people are like, we don't ever have time. We have too much crazy things going on. And I'm like, then you need to cut some things out.
Yeah.
If you can't sit together with your family, I mean, 3 times a week. Minimum.
That's a good goal.
That's a good goal. Maybe that's a good family goal for somebody out there. You know, I'm trying to think of a specific memory. One of our favorite activities that we do, and it actually goes into detail in the playbook that I mentioned, the free playbook, is we call it Rosebud and Thorn, where we sit at the table and we go around the circle and everybody shares a rose, a bud, and a thorn, which is a high and a low. Rose, you know, positive, low. I think it's so important to be able to share the good things and to be able to share the not so good things, so that it really connects the family. It allows for open conversation. It allows for the child to like be okay, like to share a good and a bad, a high and a low, and then something that you're looking forward to. So that's something that we've done over the years that I love, that it just helps us understand what's going on with each other and brings positive connection. But I don't know. I guess just sitting around the dinner table, it's funny because as I've graduated 2 kids from the house, our dinner table keeps getting, you know, our table is still big. My husband built a big table that seats 8 people. And we used to be kind of spread out. And then as they're leaving, we'll push the table up against the wall. And now our table's too big for the space that we live. And But it really is just a place that just brings warmth to my heart. And it's a pain for moms to meal plan and to think of something. And some days I'm like, whatever, go find something. And I have to remind myself, dinner table isn't just about the food nourishment. It's like the nourishment of our connectedness as a family. And it's so important to me. So I don't know. That's one of my favorite things. It's just dinner time.
I know it really is. We haven't ever implemented something like that, but I've heard of it. And I love the idea because I used to think, no, we don't want to talk about the bad things that happen in our day. We want to focus on the positive light things. But so much learning comes from talking about the hard things and connection. And then you can know what's going on in your kids' lives, in your spouse's life. It really is so important.
Yeah, I am a big believer, and I'm like you, like, oh, let's focus on the positive. And I've learned so much about it's actually really important to be able to validate our kids' frustrations or validate their lows. And like, oh, this person, I don't know, said something mean about me today. And like you're thinking, like, oh, that's a bummer. And at the dinner table, you can say, dang, that stinks. I can see why that would be hard. And then just kind of leave it at that and then reassess later that night or the next day. Like, hey, when you talked about that, I'd love to hear more about it. And it's so important to allow them to have that sad, grumpy moment. And I've learned a lot of saying like, oh no, you are a kind person. I can't believe they said that. That's actually not what we're supposed to say. I could do a whole other interview about that, but just allowing them to be like, and just say that is really hurtful. I'm sorry you had to experience that, and just leave it at that. And it's just so validating to be able to have someone hear your pain and be able to just hold it and not try and fix it and just let them have it. Anyway, so yes, I think being able to mention and just normalizing that every day is not going to have rainbows and butterflies. Yeah. Normalizing low moments. Right. I mean, I think we all have a high and a low moment in each day. And just throw it out there and leave it out there.
Man, I feel like I could talk to you about that for a long time because it's so true. It's so true. We don't want to set that unrealistic expectation that if you had a hard day, something's wrong with you or anything like that, right? So the dinner table can be such a powerful place. So thank you for that tip. And thank you for all of the ideas today. So we will for sure leave your website in the show notes and the YouTube description, as well as your Instagram. I love following Kristen on her Instagram. She has great daily helpful tips and reminders. Real life, which everyone here at One Unified Home knows we are all about real life online, keeping things unfiltered is our very favorite. So anyways, thank you so much, Kristen, for being with us. And hopefully we will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.